Wouldn't it be fun if the next arms race was not for weapons, it was for Bitcoin? Wouldn't it be fun if the US is buying Bitcoin and it scares China and Russia so they start buying Bitcoin, and we have an arms race over Bitcoin instead of over weapons? That we're as globally we're challenging each other to have a secure store of value.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Well, Cynthia Lummis, we appreciate everything you're doing for crypto, but I've got news for you. This has already been happening, guys. If you watch this report, this is from almost 2 years ago now.
We were all hyperventilating about the election over the last week. BRICS had a conference in Russia. There's 6 new members of BRICS this year. So BRICS GDP is now greater than the combined GDP of G7. Of the 6 new members, 3 of them, Argentina, the UAE, and Ethiopia, are now mining Bitcoin with government resources. So there is tremendous urgency outside of the US to find a way to circumvent the irresponsible fiscal policy that we've been running here in the US. In fact, Russia announced an initiative. Their sovereign wealth fund is going to invest in a regional initiative to build Bitcoin mining and AI infrastructure throughout BRICS, with an idea of settling global trade in Bitcoin.
So there's no.
So obviously this has been taking place for some time, y'all. It's a mad rush, guys. We are seeing the accumulation take place. I think there's a lot of people right now that are incredibly bearish. In fact, if you look at the timeline, it is the most bearish I've seen since FTX. It's pretty wild. Yet Bitcoin's still hanging around like 108,000. I think a lot of that is because of alts. Frankly, I got together with Kevin last night. Actually, I'm in St. Louis visiting family, and we were discussing the outlook of everything. And earlier this week, rather, I talked about how we feel like the 4-year market cycle is dead. It's really based on liquidity cycles. And I think there's some catalysts I'm going to talk about today that could be coming up through the end of this year that could really turn things around. Not just me saying that, there's other people as well. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the macro stuff going on. There's some new developments with China, as there is every day. There's also some positive things potentially around India. We're going to talk about the market structure bill for crypto and some really big news around DePIN as well. Big announcement from Hivemapper today. A couple, actually, since we went live yesterday. And another token launch was announced today. We have an official date on another project that we've covered before. So we have, actually, I'm going to go through all, there's about 4 or 5 token launches coming up here over the next couple of weeks. So very exciting. Long time no see. Yeah, man, we had a good time. We got to grab a couple drinks, talk about DePIN last night. So it's freaking awesome. Thank you for reposting. Anyone watching, please make sure to repost if you would. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like. It helps with the algorithm, helps find new viewers. So always trying to bring new people into the fold, guys. But before we get into that, I want to, in case you missed the stream yesterday, I want to bring you in on this interesting project on pump.fun, a live look here into this built streamed on pump.fun. You got these guys working, building up this house. This other guy, building this house. To the backstory here, kind of interesting. We've streamed this freaking all day, building this house in Brazil. This guy, they call him the off-grid gringo. So he launched this on Pump Fun. And basically, they launched a token. Once the token hits $10 million market cap for 15 minutes, they're going to raffle off this first house. They've got a total of 4 houses that could be raffled off. Of course, they have to get to that market cap on this meme coin. If they get to 20 million, the second house, 30 million, third house, and 40 million, the fourth house. And for every 25,000 tokens that you have, you get a raffle ticket. So pretty crazy stuff there. They even have the deed notarized here. I don't know. Looking at them building, I don't know if the house is going to end up looking like that. But it's a cool concept nonetheless. You see here, they have the deed notarized. They have the documentation all here and everything. right now, let's see, this thing's sitting at, it just moved back up a little bit, up to a 65,000 for refresh this $65,000 market cap at this point. It was down at 8,000 not long ago. I covered it yesterday. It was about a 45,000, I want to say. I got up last night to right around 100,000. And, it's an interesting concept. It is a total degen play, obviously. But it's cool. They have this live stream going. They've got a house they're raffling off, and it's kind of it's interesting, kind of in the sense that people that are buying, they're like, "Hey, man, we want to hold. We want this thing to get to 10 million. So that it gets raffled off. How freaking cool is that?" Just to put that in the context, though, from a $65,000 market cap, I did the math here. If it does get to, not saying it will, if it does get to a $10 million market cap, guys, that's 158x from here. If they got to the 40 million for that fourth house, you're talking about 635x from here. Man, obviously you never know with these things, man. High risk, high reward, but it's fun, and we will keep an eye on it for sure. The things that I'm really paying attention to more than anything, though, is the follower count growing on their X account. And the other thing you always want to keep your eye on with this, go to SoulScan, is the holder count increasing, currently sitting at just 201 holders. So we're super early here, guys. But if it did play out, I don't know, man. I've got a bag. I know I've talked to a couple other people that have bags as well. So we will see what happens there. Oh, man. All right, let's talk about some real stuff. Let's talk about the macro situation. Of course, in the China situation, we have some new info. Last week I covered it that the U.S. was thinking about hitting China back with software controls. In particular, they called out the potential of holding back software around cybersecurity. And that was going to be really rough on China. Well, now they've expanded this as of today. They're talking about expanding it to not only software, but products made containing software. This could be anything from laptops to jet engines, etc. So things are continuing to escalate. Keep in mind, guys, they're not meeting until October 31st. I would expect a lot more of this back and forth to happen. There's actually a lot of reports coming out in the last day or two about China's debt situation. Their economy is not doing super well. Obviously, we're one to talk our debt situation, but this is a trend around the world. I was talking to Kevin last night about this. I mean, all of these fiat, every government that's based on a fiat system is just kind of failing in real time. That's why we're seeing gold surge so much. That's why it's really a case for Bitcoin. But I would expect a lot of back and forth, a lot of volatility leading up to this, meeting with Xi. The other thing, we talked about our farmers a lot recently. There is our soybean farmers are really struggling with China no longer buying our soybeans. So this is something that's going to happen. They're going to talk about it in negotiations, obviously. One of the things they were looking to do is, pass a stimulus or a bailout, if you will, for a short-term solution, at least for our farmers, which they were unable to do. And a lot of our farmers with the government shutdown are facing bankruptcy. So some news that broke, I guess, I think this was yesterday evening, says the USDA will resume Farm Service Agency core operations. This critical services for farm loan processing and payments and other programs. So that's obviously good news for our farmers, but it's not just our soybean farmers now. We have some issues now with our cattle farmers. So one of the things Trump's been talking about is that meat prices are too high, and now there's talks about us importing meat from Argentina. Needless to say, our farmers are pissed about that, and Trump went on to say here, well, our cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the reason they're doing so well is, for the first time in decades, because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the U.S., including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, of course, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. So he talks about them needing to get the price down on meat. And in fairness, guys, this is pretty staggering statistic here. Since 2021, U.S. beef prices have gone up 58%. So that's a pretty big increase. I don't know how this is going to play out, but obviously, they got to be careful here because the midterms are coming up in around a year now. So you don't want to piss off a lot of people. And right now, I'll tell you what, our farmers are not super happy with Trump. That's for sure. And some positive news, though, some positive developments. There's some reports coming out that we could have a real tariff deal with India. There's been a lot of back and forth with Bob say, leave my Wagyu alone. Love it. There's reports that we could have something done with India. Now, you have to take all this with a grain of salt because a lot of times Trump will say, oh, we have something done with India. And then India comes out and they're like, we don't even know what he's talking about. We haven't talked to him. This is good news, though. The prime minister did come out and say around the same time that those reports are coming out that he came out and said, President Trump, your phone call in warm, I don't know, that Diwali greetings. I don't know what that means on this Festival of Lights. Oh, I guess that's their holiday there. May our two great democracies continue to illuminate the world with hope and stand united against terrorism in all of its forms. So maybe there is some credence to this tariff deal coming through. That would be obviously a big positive for things. Now, not everyone's so optimistic. There are some reports, I don't know if you've seen them, floating around now that says that this bank, what is it, UBS, announced that 93% chance of a recession. I was like, well, that's not great. That said, I read in, this is earlier this year, so I don't know why these, sometimes you see these reports and they just start circulating on X. I looked into this a bit and I thought this is interesting. So it says that, however, despite that staggeringly high number and UBS's determination that the economy has reached historically worrying levels, the bank technically isn't predicting recession. I don't know how that's the case. So they said 93% chance of recession, but says that they declared that the U.S. economy is soggy, soft, weak, yes, but not collapsing. And it did go on to say that, as Fortune pointed out, even if a recession doesn't come to pass, many experts are saying the economy is headed for a bout of 90-70 style stagflation. So stagflation is when you have a weak job market and inflation. And it puts, obviously, the Fed in a really tough spot because they have to balance both of those things. And it's interesting, about 2 years ago now, I put out a video on TikTok. I don't do a lot on TikTok anymore. But I talked about stagflation and I got torn up in the comments. They're like, oh, no, stagflation is not going to happen. And it's like, we're seeing more and more reports now that could come, between the tariffs, between the job market. Let's hope not, because that's not a great place to be. But some silver lining here. If you look at the prediction markets, 2025 chance of a recession, 6%. Man, this thing got up to earlier this year when people were really freaking out to 66% chance of recession this year, looking less and less likely now, down to 6%. If you look a little bit further out into 2026, 39% chance. So people aren't as optimistic about next year. But then again, earlier this year, there's a 66% chance. Now, obviously, that has dwindled down to 6%. So, not to say people aren't worried about markets, but they're not worried about a recession, at least in the next couple of months. So that is a good thing. Let's see here. Now, prediction markets. We're going to talk about this because I don't think, again, I just don't think people realize how big prediction markets are going to be. There's some big news announced today. Kalshi is gaining a lot of steam, by the way, guys. The poly market's been kind of the leader of the pack. Kalshi is moving. And it says here that they actually have Jupiter Exchange has launched its own prediction market powered by Kalshi. You also had a couple of reports coming out today. Kalshi is saying, hey, we're the official prediction market partner of the NHL. I was like, damn, that's a pretty big deal. Only for Polymarket to come out and say, oh, hey, we're the official prediction market of the NHL. Both coming out and saying that today. So I'm like, huh. So obviously, the battle of the Titans is upon us. Those are the two leading prediction markets today. Kalshi, though, like I said, gaining steam. Yo, just like 4 months ago, they were valued at $2 billion. About a month ago, they got investment valued at about $5 billion, and now being valued at $10 billion a month later. So this is how quickly things are moving in prediction markets. And it's interesting. I was talking to one of my buddies. I thought people just knew, but I don't think that most people understand what's happening here with these prediction markets. One of my buddies I was talking to a couple of days ago, who gambles, he's like a sports bettor. And I asked him about prediction markets, and he's like, what's that? And I told him about how you can basically bet on real world events. And he's like, oh, I think I've heard about that. And I realized how early we really are here when it comes to the general public. and all this is done on chain, mostly on Solana in many cases. But so prediction market operator Kalshi is now getting valued at $10 billion just weeks after being valued at $5 billion. So man, things are certainly moving. And yesterday I covered how DraftKings CEO was like, I'm not worried about prediction markets. Like, they're not going to take away our market share. Well, their stock is down 25%. You know what? If you can't beat them, join them. Kevin was showing me this last night, actually. There's now a 42% chance that DraftKings is going to launch a prediction market in 2025. So not surprising, y'all. I think we need to really keep an eye on the prediction markets, and they're very valuable, not just for the amount of volume that's going to be going through, but retailers, companies, hedge funds are looking at these because it gives you a real-time gauge into what the sentiment among the public is on any event, and that can drive business. So I think you're going to see that the importance around prediction markets is going to continue growing. We're going to see the valuations of these continue to grow as well. Oh man, but let's bridge into the crypto side of things and what the outlook is looking forward through the rest of this year and into next year. And there's a clip here from CNBC that I want to play for you guys. Let me reshare this. As I'm resharing this, make sure, again, retweet, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, guys, because I do stream to Rumble, YouTube, X. So make sure to subscribe to me on all platforms. If you're on X, if you're on YouTube, follow me, get on X and follow me there as well. Let me reshare this so we can get the audio, because I lost my audio. Sometimes StreamYard does that. I don't know why. That's okay. Let's see here. Let's get over to this clip. And this was earlier today on CNBC. Here's what he had to say about outlook the rest of the year.
There's a bill in D.C. that needs to get passed, hopefully in the next 6 weeks. If that does, I think that'll give crypto a real jolt to the upside. That, and as we get closer, every day we wake up is one day closer to the Fed governor transition. And, my base case is still we get a much more dovish, malleable Fed governor than we've had in the past.
In terms, though, of the sort of upside downside that you see as a trader in Bitcoin right now, how do you think about it? We've had, obviously, all sorts of folks from Tom Lee and others who've come on and said by the end of the year we could be at $250,000 for this coin. Obviously, others like Kathy Wood have even, more aggressive and optimistic views longer term out. But where are you right this moment?
Yeah, listen, the end of the year is only 2.5 months away. And so there would have to be a heck of a lot of crazy stuff to really get that kind of momentum. I do think, we should hold 100, 100 or somewhere close to that should be the downside. And on the upside, you don't really accelerate until you take out 125. And so the most likely outlook is we're rangy between, 100 and 120 and 125, unless we take out the top side. We could take out the top side if, the president prematurely makes a move on the Fed, which they could target that easily by the end of the year. And if this bill gets passed, those are the two kind of catalysts I see.
Okay, so the two things he's saying, the market structure bill, and we've talked about this quite a bit. We've also talked about the Fed, Powell, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, being up in May. I doubt they're going to make a move before that, frankly. He said it would be easy. I don't know if I agree with that. But talking about the market structure bill, we do have some news today. Senator Cynthia Lummis came out and said, big day in Washington for the digital asset market structure bill. We also had Brian Armstrong came out and said, heading to D.C. tomorrow. This was yesterday evening. He's excited to roll up our sleeves with key decision makers to get market structure to the president's desk. Momentum for the market structure clarity is at an all-time high, which is why we've seen both sides commit to getting work on the bill, even during a shutdown, eager to talk with Senate Dems and GOP plus White House to get this done. So, man, that's pretty optimistic, I have to say. The reports right now, though, are that the big holdup is around our banks. It says one of the showdown holding things up between the banking and crypto lobbies over stablecoin interest. So basically, the Dems are saying they want the market structure legislation to prevent the intent of prohibition on interest or yield paid by stablecoin issuers, including directly or indirectly through affiliates. So the banking system, which shouldn't be shocking, they don't want stablecoin issuers to be able to give you yield on your stablecoins. And this is to protect the banks, right? It's competition to our banking system if they allow that. But realistically, I mean, if they're holding treasuries, which are a risk-free asset, if you will, unless the government defaults on their debt, I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to offer yield on stablecoins. And this is actually a clip from the American Bankers Association where they talk about this actually, and I think it's kind of interesting to hear them talk about it.
A detriment to that would be allowing the likes of Coinbase or Kraken to pay interest on payment stablecoins. How do you feel, Jess? I mean, there's lots of good momentum here.
No, I totally agree.
A detriment to that would be
we shouldn't allow them to, because that's competition. Yeah, no kidding. Of course you don't want to. Keep in mind, our banks are already in a really bad spot. You have, this is from earlier this year, banks sitting on $500 billion in unrealized losses. Yeah. Why did that happen? And it is actually getting better. I'll explain why, but it says that banks got caught chasing yield. They took big losses. A lot of this was back when they bought treasuries before the Fed hiked rates. Because if you're holding bonds, and the Fed hikes rates, your bonds become less valuable because someone can either buy your bond or they can go to the open market and get a bond that's yielding better returns now that the Fed has raised rates. We're starting to see that gap closed a little bit as the Fed continues to lower rates, assuming that new bond issuance also, that yield also drops along with the Fed lowering rates. That gap should close, so the unrealized losses should start to decrease. But nonetheless, the banks are already in a bad spot. They don't want to have the competition from stablecoin issuers. You already have unprecedented amount of people pulling money out and putting into money markets that are getting better yields than banks. So it's not surprising that they're fighting this. Now, as far as the likelihood of this market structure bill getting passed this year, it depends on what prediction market you're looking at. Kalshi is sitting at 28%. Polymarket, I had to look up the name of the bill because they have several different on here. They're at about a 50-50 chance here of the HR 3633 passing. So right now, not super optimistic, but I have to say things have likely changed. With that news from Brian Armstrong today, with Cynthia Lummis, with them meeting today. So that would be really big news. As far as the rate cuts go, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We talk about this a lot. The main thing I want to point out is the dates. So October 29th, that's in 1 week from today, is going to be the next FOMC meeting. Right now, a quarter point cut is expected. The next one, December 10th. Again, the timing here is very interesting because just 2 days later, we're going to have this rate cut. 2 days later is when President Trump's meeting with Xi. Could we get good news back to back, 2 days apart? That would certainly be great for markets. Throw India in there with the tariff deal. Man, that would be great. By the way, part of that tariff deal with India is that they stopped buying Russian oil. That could certainly give some momentum to us having negotiating power against Russia and getting some stability between them and Ukraine. So we'll see. This could all come together here. The next week and a half really is critical for all of that. And of course, December 10th, the next meeting, that coincides with Solana Breakpoint. So we could have a couple of events in December as well coming together right at the same time. Now, will it be a quarter point in October, quarter point in December? That's the base case right now, but there are some statistics, some metrics showing that we could see 50 basis points in one of the meetings, 25 basis points for a total of 75 before the end of the year. I think right now markets are baking in 50. So anything above and beyond that would certainly be a catalyst for markets. And the big thing to pay attention to in the near term, in the next 2 days, is CPI. CPI is coming out on Friday. I have to think, and I said this yesterday, the government shut down. They don't have to release the CPI. And I think they know what the numbers are. They would only release those numbers, in my opinion, if they're going to be good and really push Jerome Powell to lower rates maybe more aggressively. Right now, the expectation is 3.1% inflation. If we come in below that, at 3% or below, that would certainly be a big catalyst for markets. We'll have to pay close attention to that on Friday. But could we see a big move up in markets on Friday? I think we could. And some other news, and this is the headline, the thumbnail I had today. Some news coming out of Fidelity investment. Of course, they have roughly $5 trillion, I think $4.9 trillion in assets under management. They're saying that digital assets and Bitcoin are becoming central in client conversations. And reading into this a bit, it said that Fidelity's subsidiary dedicated to these investments, their digital assets division, posted on social media, these conversations have become increasingly common. And advisors should be prepared to guide their customers in deciding whether to invest in crypto or to pass on it. They did talk about the volatility around Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. That there were some interesting findings there. But it says that Fidelity can become the starting point for crypto investments for hundreds of thousands of customers interested in these options. As digital assets talk, as investments has been growing, it's crucial for advisors to chat with their customers to pinpoint the benefits and drawbacks. And it says that financial firms can become a catalyst for Bitcoin and other crypto assets. Talking about the volatility, though, and this is from their digital assets division from Fidelity. It said here, and this is wild to me, it says, while Bitcoin is still more volatile than other major asset classes, it can be less volatile than prominent individual securities, many of which are widely held among traditional investors. For instance, when compared to the Magnificent Seven, a group of high-performing and influential stocks such as Apple and Microsoft, which frankly had been controlling the markets, Bitcoin's volatility does not appear as an outlier. If you look at this chart over the last year, Meta, Facebook, Nvidia, Tesla have been more volatile than Bitcoin. That's absolutely shocking to me, but it's wild that Fidelity is putting this out. They're talking to their clients about this. Hey, like, you look at the stock market as a super safe investment. These big stocks, arguably the leading stocks in the stock market right now, are more volatile than Bitcoin's been. So talk about a huge influx of capital. And then you have BlackRock saying this. If I can get this out of my, here we go. BlackRock talking about Bitcoin here.
And I think hard assets have to enter the equation today. Gold, Bitcoin, things that give you a little bit of ballast in the portfolio against potential for currency depreciation.
When you talk, boom. So you have BlackRock talking about adding gold, adding Bitcoin. And then when you talk about, the fact that we had that bill that was passed earlier, or I guess signed in from Trump earlier in August, 401ks now are going to be opened up to crypto. So you have, Trump signed this executive order will allow Americans to add alternatives such as cryptocurrency, real estate, and private equity into their 401k retirement savings account. And I was wondering, I wonder how much is in 401ks today. So I went on and I asked, some AI here, XAI, and it says that as of June 30th, Americans held $9.3 trillion in 401k plans. You start talking to Fidelity and these IRAs, and you add that in there, they're sitting on $45.8 trillion in investment retirement accounts and 401ks. That's a lot of money when you consider that the current market cap of crypto is like $3.6 trillion now. So holy shit, that's a lot of money that could be coming in. And then one thing I mentioned earlier, the money markets, that's where our banks are freaking out. People are pulling money out of banks, putting in money markets because they're yielding higher. There's another $7.5 trillion sitting on the sideline in money markets right now. So, I know for a lot of us, we're looking at the crypto markets. We're like, man, this sucks. Everyone's bearish because everything's lining up for so much more money to come in. You have the spot ETFs coming. You've got the fact that 401ks, IRAs are becoming, you have money market funds. There's a lot of money sitting there that hasn't been able to enter yet, that is about to have segues to get into crypto. So, I think, we're still early here. Not to say we couldn't have more downside along the way, but, I think there are much brighter times ahead. And you look at Bitcoin sitting at $107,000 today. Man, I don't know. Are you guys holding? That's the question. Are you guys diamond handing? I'll tell you someone that is. Elon came out and said that Tesla has not sold any of their 1.3 billion as of Q3. So they're still sitting on their holdings. What about Solana? That's a good question. I'm very bullish on Solana. I mean, think about this. Right now, you think about all stocks going to be tokenized soon. And obviously, I think some of that's going to go to layer 2s on Ethereum. But right now, 95% of tokenized stock is on Solana. You also have the fact that you have spot ETFs. Actually, I thought I saved this, but the spot ETFs, there's more Solana spot ETFs than any other asset class. So you think about the amount of money that's going to pour in from that as well, from the institutional side. I think that Solana, to me, is one of the chains I'm the most bullish on, if not the most bullish. So I can't find this post, but it's all right. But I think, I wish I had. There's a list of them, and it showed all the spot ETFs that were pending, and by far and large, Solana has the most. Now, they should already be passed, but it's the government shutdown that's been delaying it. So, we should have, as soon as the government's back up and running. The question is, when is that going to be? There's been reports that it could be within the week. We'll see. But as soon as that happens, expect a huge influx of spot ETF approvals. That is very bullish for Solana, and I think projects built on Solana. So those are my thoughts. Very excited about where Solana's heading, and I think that we have much brighter times ahead there. Not for Cadena. I don't know if you saw that, but they announced yesterday they were shutting down. Some people very upset about that. That sucks. Fortunately, I didn't have any exposure, but for those of you that did, it's a reminder, man, nobody is insulated. I think Cadena got up to like $4 billion market cap last market cycle. Bummer, man. I think we'll see some of that. We'll see more of that. And you see it in bear markets, especially, where projects fail, man. Is MicroStrategy a good buy at this point? So a lot of people that think so. I'm not as interested in digital asset treasuries right now. Here, before I move into DPIN, let's talk about this. We have Tom Lee coming out. That came out last week, talking about how the digital asset treasury bubble has somewhat burst. So you have what's called MNAV. It's your value of your company. So most of them choose a NASDAQ traded company that's kind of been stagnant and a dead company that they revitalize and add crypto. So it could be Solana. That's what you have with your digital asset treasuries. You have, Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is an example of that. They kind of led the way here. For a long time, they were trading at a huge premium, meaning that their value of their NASDAQ traded company or market cap exceeded the value of their holdings. We're seeing that really come back down to earth, to where those MNAV premiums, if you will, have come down to the point where a lot of them are actually trading negative MNAV. So in other words, the crypto they're holding is actually worth more than their valuation of their market cap. And that's a problem. You're going to have a situation where there's a few different scenarios that can play out here. These digital asset treasuries could be forced to sell their underlying asset. They could do a stock buyback to get their MNAV back in line, because that would reduce their market cap and their floating shares. Or you could see acquisitions. And I think that's the most likely scenario. We're going to see the better performing digital asset treasuries buy up some of the underperforming ones and acquire their underlying asset. I think we'll see a lot of that coming up. But to answer your question, if I'm interested in MicroStrategy, I would rather at this point just buy the spot ETF. If you're bullish about where Bitcoin's going, I don't know why you wouldn't just buy the spot ETF and get direct exposure essentially to the underlying asset. Then you don't have to worry about the premiums. You don't have to worry about, decisions within a business. You can just get direct exposure to Bitcoin. Obviously, the best is to buy Bitcoin and just hold it in cold storage and self-custody. But if you're looking to get exposure like institutions or you in your investment account, retirement account, whatever, through traditional markets, I am leaning more towards spot ETFs versus any of the digital asset treasuries. And I know Bob's the same way. We saw the MNAVs on some of these Solana DATs really take a hit, whereas the Rex Osprey spot ETF has performed quite well. So that's a good example right there of why I think you're better off just getting the spot ETF. All right. That's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that made sense. Okay, let's talk about where we're at. Market cap for crypto now down to 3.63 trillion, guys. It's been a little ugly. I mean, it wasn't long ago. Earlier this month, we were at 4.3 trillion. We've seen a lot of washouts, a lot of fear in the markets, and sitting at 3.63 trillion. You look at deep in today, disgusting. A lot of negative price action. Geode the one at 1.4%. I'll talk about why that is today. The week, the month, the year. It's all pretty gross, guys. Obviously, we talked about the catalyst that could turn things around. It's just a lot of macro issues right now. And there's a lot of turmoil from a geopolitical standpoint. The tariff situation, there's just, and then you have the job market. There's a lot of things here in the US that are concerning. So we got to work through all that. I think there's a lot of things that could come together and eliminate some of those threats in the next couple of weeks, but that's what we got to talk about. Here we go. Let's talk about the fear and greed index. Whew. So you have sitting at 25, guys. The markets are extremely fearful. These are the times when it's important to touch grass, to look at zoom out, look at the bigger picture. If you're holding spot, me personally, I'm not looking to sell these prices. These are generally, if you look back in history, the best times to buy. Okay. This is a really important index. And I think if we have another resurgence here through the end of this year, guys, keep a close eye on this. And it's a good way to remove emotions from what's taking place in the market and kind of keep your head on straight. Okay. Because what we've seen in these times where you have extreme fear, it generally doesn't last very long. Okay. And these have provided some of the best opportunities to enter the markets that we've ever seen, right? The same is true on the other side of things, though. It can be really, really hard when everything's euphoric to not get greedy. I talked to Kevin about this last night. In this market cycle, especially, and we've seen this also as well as last market cycle, when you see this particular fear and greed index, and they're all calculated differently, this is the one that I put the most stake in because it has the best correlation. It's the alternative.me. If you just do a Google search for fear and greed index crypto, this will be one of the top results. Okay. When we've seen us hit 90, within 3 weeks, the market's topped. Both times this market cycle, we saw it last market cycle as well. We saw this in March of 2024. We also saw this in right around Thanksgiving of last year. Again, we saw things really top, especially for alts, right around December 10th or December 10th to December 14th. So this has been a really good indicator of when it's time to, maybe take some profits because things are a little overheated. But, on the other end of things, we're sitting down here, man, super fearful. Doesn't mean that you should catch a falling knife, but generally when it comes to DCAing, if you're trying to get in, that has proven to be a good time to do so. Okay. When will we break 100K this year? Bob says, y'all, we don't know. It probably depends on Trump's tweets. Let's be real. I mean, honestly, if things don't go well with China in a week and a half, I bet we could see us break below. Okay. If we see things escalating, if something comes out where they're not meeting at the end of the month, and they cancel the meeting, that could be certainly something. But there's a million things. There's so many variables right now. You kind of have to just keep your pulse on everything every day now. Nobody knows. Yes. I mean, that's kind of it. You can't predict. Thank you, sir, for reposting. I appreciate it. You can't predict things, but you can certainly keep your eye on the macro events. You can tie it to what's happening in the markets, and you can kind of look forward a little bit there, but there's still so many uncertainties, right? But what we do know is with this chart, guys, this is incredibly, incredibly important. Keep your eye on this. I actually have a widget on my phone. So this site, you can actually add a widget to your phone. I have it on my front page, man, because this is top of mind and really, really important. And I think, again, you can kind of disconnect from the emotions in the markets and make more logical decisions. Let's talk about some deep in stuff, guys. This report came out about Waymo. 876,000 rides per month right now in California alone. 6x from a year ago, 69x since August of 2023. It's happening, y'all. We are seeing the movement take place. And I bring this up because the data that's needed to train all these autonomous vehicle models, which is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, the companies can't get the data themselves, and they need to continue capturing data. This is incredibly bullish for projects like HiveMapper, Rover, Nadix, okay? Those are all hitting this robotics sector. This is gonna be the biggest robotics sector in the near term. Of course, you have humanoid robots and those sorts of things coming, okay? So those are important as well. But some big news out of HiveMapper. And again, in about a week and a half, I'm hosting their AMA, quarterly AMA. Forward Industries, and Bob shared this with me earlier, pinged me on this right before I came on. Forward Industries, which is the largest Solana digital asset treasury, has added Ario to be one of their advisors. They're 25 members. This is freaking huge. Like, this is very unexpected. I did not know this was coming. So really big announcement for them to be included in this. That's freaking cool, man. That's really cool. That's really big news for HiveMapper. They also announced this yesterday, right after I got off the stream. They have their $19 per month plan, so you don't have to buy the hardware up front, and you get Helium Mobile included for connectivity with the B Dashcam. They've partnered with Demo. So I was talking to Ariel about this. They have a lot of fleets, and fleet owners were like, hey, we love the tools that you've built in your Beekeeper app or your platform with the Dashcam, but we want telematics data. So this is why they partner with Demo. So now instead of 19 for 25 a month, you get both the Dashcam, you'll get a Demo unit for your vehicles and your fleet. You'll be able to get all the visual data and all the attributes from that in the platform, but you also get the telematics data in there. So it'll be really a fully functional platform for business owners to be able to access all that data. Huge news, man. Both of these projects, by the way, and this is a report that came out from A16Z, you have the Deepin report, Demo, HiveMapper, Akash, who I've talked about a lot recently, GeoNet and Helium all were covered in this report as far as the fees that are covered. So these are all projects we cover very regularly on the show. Demo token price hurts right now. You're right about that, man. All of Deepin really right now has been just annihilated. And that's where everyone's like, oh man, we're going into a bear market. It's like, shit, low cap's been in a bear market since January, really, if you think about it. Things have to shift at a certain point, with rate cuts coming, with QE coming. I think geopolitically, I think we could have some things get sorted out in the next couple of weeks. I still remain very optimistic about November and December. I think we were hopeful about October, but obviously the China stuff kind of came in and ruined that. But we have to hope that gets sorted out. It says, so each vehicle would have a Demo device and data would get pulled together for display. Yeah, so I don't think they've come out with all this yet, but here's what I expect will happen. For $25 a month, you'll get a Demo device for each vehicle, the B Dashcam for each vehicle, and all that data will pull into HiveMapper's Beekeeper platform. So you'll have insights into all of your vehicles from both visual and telematics in the Beekeeper platform. So that's pretty freaking cool, man. And they are at a point where they have plenty of demand. They're just looking to get more supply. They need more people mapping. Obviously, part of that, they need to get the token price up. Let's be real. That's something we're going to talk about on the AMA. Things that they could do maybe to get the honey token up, the price up, because that's it's a really important aspect to this. GeoNet, in this report I mentioned earlier, that their token is the only Deepin project that's up today. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Mexi listed the Solana geode token on their exchange today. So I believe that probably led to some positive price action. But bigger news, in my opinion, is that they were published in this report inside Unmanned Systems. A 60-page special dives into how builders, surveyors, and robotics innovators use GeoNet worldwide. This is freaking massive for GeoNet, man. They are doing all the right things. I know the token price is frustrating as hell. It actually doesn't make any sense. But again, I think it's more of a macro situation right now. Right now it's time to pay attention to, while the market's down, which ones are building, because once things do turn around, and I don't have a crystal ball, obviously, but once things do turn around, I think these entry points for the real projects that'll separate from the rest, I think we probably will look back and be like, damn, we had a long period of time to really add to these positions. And GeoNet's one of those projects that I feel that way about. And the other thing is, it's really great to see that Aoki was also tweeting about GeoNet. You're seeing in the robotics sector, the real projects are really moving to the top. You're seeing kind of some of the bullshit projects are trying to say they're in robotics. The real projects are really trying to support each other here, and you love to see it. Aoki's legit, GeoNet's legit. There's a number of projects, and actually, if you look at the ones on CoinGecko right now that are trending in robotics, there they are. I mean, GeoNet and Aoki are up there. Peak is up there. The real projects that I think are going to do quite well when things rebound. Robotics is that one of those sectors. I think all these projects, man, are going to freaking go bananas, honestly, and that's why I've been really rebalancing and adding to those positions during these downturns. Let's talk about some projects that are launching tokens, though. He said, good time to buy more Aoki. It's always a good time to buy more Aoki, man. Shit. I'll tell you what, for the announcements, I just don't think people really are aware of it. It's market conditions holding it down. But gosh, man, if we were in the midst of a bull run with the announcements that are coming out in the deep end sector, with the fundraising, with, you have Hivemapper 32 million, you had Daylight with 75 million, 375, 10 million, Grass 10 million. The weather network, Nubula, I believe is what it's called. They had, what is it, $8 million. Y'all, like these types of announcements would be just pushing token prices up like crazy, but we're just not seeing it because the market conditions suck so much right now. But let's talk about some projects that are launching. We actually had on the space earlier today, Tashi Network, November 15th. Official TGE. They announced it today on the space. I don't think that was public knowledge before that, so that's big news. They are building out decentralized servers for gaming, but they're also doing stuff in the robotics sector. So one of the things that Nils talks about with Aoki is they're mapping out like internal spaces for robots, but he's like, he talked about how a lot of the data centers being built out for AI are probably a little overkill. And the thing that's gonna be really important is having hyper local compute to access in a decentralized way, because latency is the bigger deal. You don't need a ton of compute for robotics and navigating spaces, but you need to be able to access compute very in close proximity. So I think Tashi is going to be a big deal there, and being able to access compute in a decentralized way, in a localized way. So they're moving into that orchestration layer, if you will. You have 375 AI, so they were actually on TV. You have Harry Dewhurst, dude's a stud, talking about tech giants are shifting billions overseas to build AI backbone, but he's talking about what they're doing with 375 AI with edge compute. We believe, based on some statements made, that their TGE is coming later this month. So within the next week and a half or so, I would imagine soon we should have some insight, if you're using the 375 AI app, what that will mean for your tokens that you will get at TGE. So that should be coming soon, I would imagine. So keep an eye out for that. And then two others, they were sharing the space there, the stage rather. We've got Wingbits. You got Robin with Wingbits there, and then of course Karam with Daba Network. All of them are going to be launching tokens this year. I don't know about Wingbits. They're supposed to be in Q4, but definitely Daba in December. So a number of really solid deep end projects launching in Q4. Will market conditions turn around? Looking historically and where we are in the extreme greed, I would say it's likely we will see things rebound. Oh, Deep Network. Yeah, Bob, do you know when Deep's launching their token? They're supposed to be in Q4 as well, I believe. Nate was on the space early this morning with us. So Deep's doing big things too in the decentralized compute space, kind of like a decentralized AWS, if you will. They've got some real customers too using the network. So Deep's another one to keep your eyes on. So man, a lot of really solid projects launching tokens between now and the end of the year, y'all. We could see if market conditions really do turn around. Yeesh, how about that? Fall before December 21st for Deep. So there you go. Man, big things ahead, y'all. Big things ahead. I know it's really hard to be optimistic in times like these, but if you can go against the grain, try to remove emotions and look at things objectively, that's generally the best investors are able to do that. Also, a lot of investors are able to do nothing for long periods of time. So right now for my spot positions, I'm mostly just hanging on, if not rebalancing a bit to where I think, the next movement is going. Robotics. I think we have a lot of projects that are hitting on that are doing real things. But November and December, man, and Friday, keep an eye on CPI. Let's see what happens with the FOMC next week. Next week and a half are going to be really critical. There's a lot of things happening over the next couple weeks. From a macro perspective, of course, we'll be covering it every day, y'all. I will be back tomorrow. Friday, I'll be on the road. I'm heading back to Chicago. I'll be back in my home office. I won't have my grand piano anymore behind me. Oh, man. It's been fun, though. It's always fun to get back and see family. So appreciate you all. Again, subscribe to my channel, YouTube channel. Follow me on X. Reshare, like if you would. It helps with the algorithm so I can get more people, more eyeballs on my videos. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for the comments and interacting. It's always fun. Have a fantastic Wednesday. Go touch some grass, get outside, get some fresh air. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.